Hi everyone and welcome to A Nightbird. I'm Claire. It's been quite a while since I did my last podcast, for various reasons, but mainly, it has to feel right, and it feels right today, and I'm really happy to be sitting here and looking forward to showing you what I've been doing, although it's not a huge amount. We've been doing a lot of things on the house and in the garden over the summer and so on, and really being creative, and as well with Luca, that it's great to have a child, because they really are your greatest teachers. And he's taught me a lot, really, about what it means to be creative over the last year, because he's really starting to take an interest in creating things, and yet it's so different from the world that we live in, where we have an idea of something perfect that we want to, we see like a nice picture, for example, of a wonderful looking cardigan, and we say, yes, I want to make a cardigan like that. It has to be perfect. And then we tend to get frustrated with ourselves, when it doesn't turn out exactly the way we wanted it to be. But is that really being creative? That's a kind of question that I've been mulling over for a while. With Luca, he it is often that a child will be given an activity to do, and I think this is how we end up like this. That everything has to be perfect. That for example, in school they'll give all the children a snowman to make. So they've cut out the shapes, and they say to everybody, you all have to make a snowman, and it has to look like this, and with a hat and everything. And in the end, they're making something, but they're making everything the same, and it's not necessarily being creative. And I've noticed that with myself and with Luca, that I've tried to do crafting activities with him, and whenever I try, it ends up going in a completely different direction. And I have to deal with my frustrations, because I have an idea of how I want it to be, and yet he is just purely creative, and so he will just create, and it will not be anything like what I imagined in the first place, and that's where I have to let go. I can give you a good example, and that's that this month I decided that we were going to make a nice winter scene in our front window. And so I cut out shapes from an old book. So it had yellow pages and and a text and everything. And I thought that would look nice. So I cut out trees and stars and the moon and everything. And I thought, well, with Luca later, I'll do this scene, and he can help me stick the things in the window. And so when he's going to kindergarten now. I'll tell you about that later. So when I picked him up from kindergarten, he came back, and we started sticking the things in the window. And straight away, all the things that I had imagined, about the stars and the sky and everything, started to take their own shape, because he decided he wanted to draw faces on the stars. And then he decided that some of the trees were going to go in the sky because they're flying trees. And there was this real part of me that was like, but no, that's not the scene I had in mind. I don't want flying trees in my front window. And then I thought, that's so silly. Like, why do I have this? And I let him do whatever he wanted. And we have this crazy scene in our front window with more than one moon as well. He told me that he wanted 2 moons. And then once I'd cut out 2 moons, he said, oh, can we have a half moon as well? So it's kind of got like several different phases of moon, and they're all, the moon is sometimes lower than some of the trees. But I want to encourage him with this, and I realise now that that's not the way, to try and mould them into something. And so I let him, be creative in his own way. And really that's, over the summer he's taken a great interest in all the things we have in the house. He often goes into the kitchen, he'll take the garlic press and a piece of string and an elastic or something, and then he'll make a little structure somewhere in the corner of the living room. And again, I think, what is he doing? I don't want a garlic press in the corner. But then, he's taking so much pleasure in, like, look what I'm making here. And it's really just a lesson for me to let go. So yes, unfortunately, I'm not sure that they really support that in the kindergarten, but that doesn't matter. I think you have to learn both. You have to learn that sometimes we have a project and we're doing, this is our goal. And they do painting with the children and crafting and so on in the kindergarten, but it's usually that, everyone has to cut out the same shape, or, this the kind of thing that I've noticed. But I thought it would be important for him to go to the kindergarten here, to get to know the other children. It was in the beginning, and it still is, that we're not fully part of the community here. It takes really a long time to get to know people, and the best way is through your children. I also want him to play with children around here, and it was hard at first because they all know each other already in the kindergarten, and Luca's the new boy, and it really broke my heart, to see him trying to play with the children and finding that they were kind of leaving him out. They weren't helping him out at all. But the good thing is, here in Germany, and I think they do it as well in a lot of kindergartens across the world, but it's definitely, here it's a thing that you must do, is that you give your child this phase where you go with them to the kindergarten, and you can do it for as long as you like. And the good thing is, because I'm at home, I was able to go with him for quite a long time, stay with him. Sometimes I'd say, I'm going to wait outside, but I kind of didn't leave him completely until we'd been going for a couple of months. Sometimes I'd say, today you're going to go on your own, but I promise I'll come with you tomorrow. And it's only really in the last couple of weeks that things have started to calm down. He's started to make friends. And it's really, you start to see, the kind of, we face it all the time, with meeting new people, but for them it's new. And they get the feeling about, is this person someone I can play with or not? And they're so different, all these little children. And at first he made friends with a couple of boys who were kind of wild, which is great. Luca has a wild side too, but maybe together they were a bit too wild for him, and there were some times where Luca was a bit upset because they were sort of picking on him a bit. And then I noticed that it really means a lot to him when I trust somebody, that he kind of then gives them a chance as well. So I tried to sort of observe the children, and I thought about, which ones do I think that sort of similar to Luca, and so I tried to then make contact with some of the other children, and then it just seemed to happen on its own. Suddenly, the house, which is quite near to us, across the way here, they moved out, and a new family moved in, and it turned out that they had a child who was also in the class in the kindergarten. He's quite a quiet boy, imaginative, kind of much quieter than Luca, actually. He doesn't really seem to have a wild side at all, but they play really well together. So that's nice, because he can also see him outside of the kindergarten, and so that just suddenly worked out really well. And then he got a girlfriend as well, so that really helped. She told him that she loved him, and they played princess and knight together. And since then he's looking forward to going to Kita so that he can see Lily, his girlfriend. So I'm really happy now that he's doing that. I think it's important for him to learn this now, to socialise. I like the system here in Germany, that they have that before school, that you just go somewhere to play, just to get used to the idea of being in a group. They don't really learn anything. They're not doing mathematics or really learning the alphabet or anything like that. They're just playing and learning how to to put themselves forward, or to express themselves in a group of children. And I think that's really good. So I'm hoping now that we've got past that difficult phase, and that Luca can and then maybe I even I'm going to think about what I might do work-wise, or or just getting myself out there and trying to get involved with whatever's going on here. I think that would be good for me too. I have joined a choir, and that's been really nice. I always used to sing in the choir at school, and then I haven't really done anything like that for a long time. And there are a lot of churches around here, but they kind of seem to only have a service like once a month or something. And so there's the biggest village, which is about half an hour drive away, but they have a bigger church and they have a choir there. So it's something that unfortunately I can't get to every time because it depends on when Hendrik's back so that he can look after Luca. But it's something I enjoy very much, and we're doing a Christmas concert and everything, so I'm looking forward to that. The only thing is they're new Christmas carols for me, and they're in German and they're different, but they're also very nice. I kind of crave my old English Christmas carols though a little bit, but I can listen to those at home. And I wonder if maybe, after a year of going to this choir, I might, get to know the director enough to maybe request an English carol next year. But we'll see. Okay, so with regards to how creative I've been, well, I'll show you some things that I've been knitting. I think, I remember that the last podcast I did, I'd kind of set myself some rules that I had to finish certain things before I was allowed to move on to anything else. And I kind of stuck to that for a while until I realised that, why am I making this, if I'm not enjoying doing something, then, I should move on. So there's this cardigan, the one that I made myself do. And actually the only reason that I stopped doing it is because I ran out of yarn. And I can easily get some more, and I'm actually going to go shopping, but it's in Berlin, that's the thing. So I'm going to go shopping next week and get some more of the yarn. But I'm not actually that pleased with how this cardigan is turning out. Nothing to do with the pattern. It's a wonderful pattern. I don't know, I just don't think it looks very good. It looks a bit sloppy, and that maybe I'm just wondering how well it will fit. But I could be wrong. I have to say that I prefer to do sweaters and cardigans from the top down, and this one is from the bottom up, because I feel like I can't really tell how it's going to look. Whereas with when you do it from the top down, I can sort of get more of an impression of how well it fits here, and how long it should be, and so on. So we'll see. Maybe it will be a surprise and it will turn out nicely. And I'm nearing the end. We've got 2 sleeves, and they're on now. And we're just on the second part of kind of then just doing the top and then putting the button bands on. And so, oh no, actually it's not. This sleeve's going on in a minute. It's ready to go on. But I'm not sure there's not enough yarn to do that. So I'm going to wait until I go shopping next week. I don't know if you noticed what I'm wearing, but this is the thing that I'm the most pleased with at the moment, that I decided to get this finished. I'm so happy with this. I mean, I know it's winter and I've got my arms free, but this is so warm. It's this special yarn that I got a year ago, or maybe even more. And it ended up being one of these things where I wanted to make a shrug for the knit along out of this yarn. But I put myself under a lot of pressure because I wanted to do the knit along and I wanted to do it with this yarn. And, this lady had kindly sent this yarn to me, and I wanted to use that yarn and show her that I appreciated it and everything. But then the shrug didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, and I had to unpick it. And then I found this pattern, which is actually supposed to be done with a different type of yarn, but it just seemed that it would be perfect for it. And it totally was. It's because it's this mixture of camel and silk and wool, and it's soft and warm, and and I think I like the way it sits. I don't know if I can sort of show you a bit better. I was a bit worried that it would be too long, but it fits really well. Hangs well here, I think, although it's been a while since I blocked it, and then I washed it again. But I'm really happy with it. And so this is this Nature's Luxury Faroche. I think you may have remembered if you've watched my earlier podcast that I talked about the yarn and how much I loved it, but it's really finding that perfect project for it, and now I have. And the great thing is that there was actually a little bit of yarn left over, enough to make, I'm making a little kind of, just a little neck scarf. That's over at my mother-in-law's house. That's what I knit when I'm there. So it's not a lot of yarn, so it's not going to be very big. Oh, there's a squirrel up here. I don't know if you can see. We built a squirrel house as well, so there's a lot more squirrels in our garden. It's just a slow project, but I think it will be really perfect because it feels so good against your skin and it's warm, and that's something that's hard to find. I often find that if something is warm, it's itchy. So this is really perfect. I can totally recommend this yarn. I've been doing... Oh, I'll finish with the knitting things because there's also another thing I'm knitting for Luca. And this is... I only started this a week ago. He requested a red sweater, so how could I refuse? He said, "Mama, I'd like you to knit me something again." And that's really nice because... I love that he actually appreciates the things that I make for him. He really does at the moment, and I don't know how long he will, but maybe he will always will. And it's really nice that he actually said, I want red, and so I took him with me to choose the yarn, and he chose it, and he chose the pattern as well. He didn't want... I made him this jacket last year, which had a lot of cabling on it, and which he likes, but he said he doesn't want that this time. He wants it to be normal, so maybe it's he sees it as a little bit too ornate or something like that, but he still wears that one, but it's starting to get a little bit small. So this one, I think I'll probably wrap it up as a Christmas gift because it will probably be done just about in time for Christmas. I'll just show you. I'm not really using a pattern, but I'm basing it on the flax sweater from Tin Can Knits, which is a free one of their free sort of the tutorial things that they for beginner knitters, but it's really perfect for the kind of thing that Luca requested. I only changed it a little bit that he wanted this two and two ribbing rather than one. He's really specific about what he wants. And another thing that I've been making for Luca is trousers. Very, very simple, and this is the sewing projects that I've been doing. So this is the first one I made. It's not my favourite. I kind of, just in case it went wrong, I chose my least favourite materials. But it's actually quite warm, and it's so easy to make. I mean, you can make them in half an hour, and they're nice and warm. And the great thing is about this, because he's going into the kindergarten on his own and he has to be quite independent, he finds it a little bit difficult with the jeans and so on that he's got, with the button and the zip and everything. And he has had accidents, not that he hasn't made it to the toilet, but just that he hasn't been able to get his trousers off. So these are kind of easy to put on and easy to wash and easy. They're just kind of play trousers. And so then I made him some with dinosaurs on, and I actually had to ask him today not to wear them because I wanted to show them in my podcast. He wants to wear them every day. He loves them so much. But we've been shopping and we've chosen some more fabrics. This is the one that I'm using next. So he chose this one. And I've got the band that I'll use. I don't know even what that is called in English. This is called Bündchen in German. And I should have found out what it's called in English, but I'm sure somebody knows. And so you just cut this out, and I think with this one I'll choose a kind of another colour so that it makes it look a little bit, I don't know, more, because it's only brown, so I thought maybe a contrasting colour would be nice. And then I think I might have a go at making some t-shirts for him as well. But that's also, I made that at sewing evening. So I'm slowly finding out what's going on around here. And there is a sewing evening. Again, it's not something I can always make it to because of Hendrik's work. If he's on business trips or if he's working late, then I can't make it. But it's just everyone taking their sewing machine to the school. The school hall there often does things like yoga and so on in the evenings, and everyone takes their sewing machines, and then we can swap ideas, and some people are beginners, some people are very experienced, but it's basically, the idea is just to hang out and sew together, so it's not really lessons or anything like that, it's just sewing together, and it's really nice. And I actually saw something quite interesting. Someone was making a dress from old ties. I don't know if you can imagine, so because they're quite thin and then they get thicker, they just sewn them all together, and it then has this shape, and it was kind of multicolored. It looked pretty cool. I'm not sure if I would wear it exactly, but I don't know, there was something nice about it, and we don't have enough old ties, but I just thought it was a nice idea. And another thing someone was making was cutting off the ends of old socks, then using this stuff again, bunchen, and just sewing that to the end where the foot was, and then they're just kind of sleeves just to keep you warm in the winter. So yeah, it's nice that, you know, there are all these kind of neat ideas that people are coming up with. So on to Christmas decorations and so on. So I want to do things with Luca and this being creative thing that we were talking about. This is something that he actually really enjoyed doing. You can just buy these. It comes with this metal stars, and then you thread beads on and then fix it at the ends. So that's one that I made. As you can see, I tried to do it with matching colours, and everything has to be in order. Here's the one that Luca made, and I think it looks just as nice, but he just did it random, you know, he did the beads that he felt like, and I rather like that one, I have to say. And here's another one that I did, which is, you know, stripy, everything in order. Then there were, this was a great idea, because we have a lot of wood in the garden, and branches that have fallen off trees and so on. So we cut just slices of branches, and then drilled little holes in them. And this one is quite easy for the children to follow. I'm just making a star. And so Luca made this one. This one was a little bit more difficult, so I did that one. And we'll just make a few of those. So you just use cotton, and you don't have to use red as well. I mean, I think I might do some other colours. The only thing, the more kind of time-consuming thing is like cutting the wood and drilling the holes. But then once you've done that, and also Luca enjoyed that part, you know, just watching and so on. But I think then I'm not going to do anything else really this Christmas. Although I would like to knit a cowl for Hendrik, but I should be able to get that done. I don't want to put myself under too much pressure, and I want to really enjoy Christmas without feeling it has to be anything in particular. We're having both grandmas coming this year. My dad decided that he wanted to have a quiet Christmas with my brother, so they're staying in England, and so we're having sort of a smaller Christmas this year, and I'm glad to be having it in this house again. We're really starting to feel at home here. And yeah, it's still not. I think it really does take a long time. It still feels new. There's still a lot of work to do on the house, but when I look back, you know, on when we first moved in here, we've really started to make it our own, and slowly it's becoming, you know, all the things that you imagined. And I just, being out here and being in the woods is really good definitely for me, that I feel a lot more grounded. I feel more connected to the earth, and I must say that I think it has made a profound change, especially over this year. In fact, it was hard for me at first, because I'm used to the city and I'm really used to being busy, and I suddenly felt like my life had changed, and the way I see the world had changed. But sometimes there's this catching up period, you know, that it's nice that life has changed, but on the other hand, you're so used to it being how it was, so you're a bit confused, and I have to say that that's how I've been feeling, and unsure about what I want to do next. Or I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why I've not been feeling like doing the podcast. I've been feeling as though I'm going through a lot of changes, but ultimately for the highest good. I'm really sure, and the way I feel now about this land and about being out in nature, it's almost like something I'd forgotten, and I started to get memories from my childhood. You know, that how I used to feel when I went to the woods, or how I used to feel when I heard stories, historic stories about people who, I don't know, who went on pilgrimages and that type of thing. And I feel this real connection. And that's really starting to come true for me here. And although we do sometimes still go to Berlin to visit people, and I get this it's this feeling of excitement because I do love the city. I love Berlin. But I also start to feel quite stressed there, and I start to realise how hectic it is and how there are so many people, yet you don't have any contact to them whatsoever. You see people, but you don't even acknowledge each other because you can't. There are too many. You're getting on the train, so you're surrounded by people all the time, and yet you have no acknowledgement that there's another living person, next to you. You just don't. And I'm starting to see that as quite sick now, because here, if you see another person, you greet them. And that was really hard for me at first, because I was like, I don't know this person, why is it saying hello? And also because I was so used to ignoring people and just being in my own world, I would sometimes I'd need a moment to catch up. Someone said hello, and then I would be like, oh, hello, like, and almost as if it's so unnatural for me to do that, but it's the most natural thing in the world. So really, it's really changed me. And for Hendrik, it's different. He actually grew up in this type of environment, and so he's got this good balance. He works in the city, and that was for him something new when he was a teenager, to go to the city and to. He always lived on the outskirts of Berlin, so he knew Berlin very well. But he was from this part which was a lot of lakes and trees and so on. And for him, he kind of really feels now that it's better for him that because he has this hectic job and which he loves, and he gets the chance to come here and get firewood from the garden and just hearing the wind in the trees and so on. It really is something. And the gardening, we're both, Hendrik and I, are really excited about gardening now. Hendrik's out there almost every weekend raking up pine needles. That's the one thing I will say is probably the hardest thing about our garden, that we have all these pine trees. We're still unsure about taking them down, and I'm starting to lean more towards not taking them down, because there's really something special about this feeling of being in a woodland garden. The next door neighbours have already taken down a bunch of trees, and there's something sad about that. I really find it sad that they took all the trees down and built this really big yellow house in the middle of the... And I kind of feel, I don't want that. I love this piece of kind of really organic woodland that we have. And if that means that we don't see the sun as much, then so be it. I mean, we can take the car 5 minutes and go and sit in a field. It's fine. And the sun really does come through the trees. And that's something I like. I enjoy the look of the sun streaming through the trees in a way more than seeing it on the horizon, or it's different. And the moon as well. I notice every phase of the moon, and it's also very nice to see it surrounded by trees. Yes, and vegetables. So we're going to totally go to town on vegetables next year. We did the experiment this year that we grew our own vegetables, but we didn't want to go over the top. We were beginners, but it was a huge success. So we had pumpkins, and potatoes. And I have to say, because of being such a novice, I planted these pumpkins from a pumpkin that I bought last year. But I experimented a lot last year, and I bought different types of pumpkins. And I thought that it was a normal, orange Halloween pumpkin that I'd planted. So I've been waiting for a long time for this pumpkin to turn orange. And I was starting to think, we're not going to be able to harvest these pumpkins because they're not getting ripe. And then thankfully, as a visitor came over who lives in the area, I said, no, this is a different type of pumpkin. This is a green pumpkin. And it's ready. And they were delicious. So I think, how many did we get? We got 5. And then a couple of really mini ones, which I then just stuck eyes on and put out the front with our collection of lanterns. But the ones that we ate, they were really delicious. I love, just plain baking pumpkins and eating them a little bit like potatoes. I just put cheese or cottage cheese with them and salad and so on. It's really nice. But there are a lot of recipes I tried as well with pumpkins. And then pumpkin pie, of course, so the sweet ones. And the potatoes amazed me because, again, I used an old potato and we let them grow shoots. So there may be 4 potatoes, and we buried them and then got like 50, so that just to me was like magic. So definitely there are more things I want to plant this time. Beetroot, or beets as they call them in America. Because I really love beetroot, and I bought actually a big sack of beetroot from the local farm, and I've been trying out different recipes, and there's a recipe I really want to post, so I'm going to do that. I think after I do this podcast I'm going to post my recipe, and then I'll put a link to it in the show notes, because it's a spread to put on bread. Which is made with beetroot. So you do have to kind of get your hands dirty. That's the only thing about beetroot, is that I end up getting red hands and the whole kitchen gets red. But it's worth it, I think. And I never really realized how much I like winter vegetables. Being a vegetarian, I'm quite attracted to this kind of Mediterranean type vegetables like aubergine and courgette and peppers and so on, which I also really like, and I will have a go at growing those as well, I think. Although I heard that if you grow courgette, zucchini with pumpkin, it can actually be dangerous. There was a case in Germany where someone actually died from having a zucchini soup because he'd been growing them next to pumpkins. And there's some kind of toxin that can occur if you grow them together. So things like that, I'm a bit worried about. That I have to be a bit wary of, that type of thing. And when you're new to something, then you need to know these things. But yes, I'll definitely we'll expand our vegetable patch. I'm looking forward to spring and planting more things. But in the meantime, we're doing more on the house. More indoors. We've not really been watching much. I lost interest in a lot of series. Maybe this has to do with my thing about getting out there and being in nature. I'm not as into watching TV, but I'm not against it. I actually started to watch old films that I enjoyed as a child. We watched The Princess Bride the other night, and I still think Luke is a bit young for it because there are some moments that are a bit scary. But I really enjoyed films like that. I'll definitely be watching The Labyrinth again. It's my Christmas tradition. And again, I'm into historic documentaries. So Hendrik and I, when we have a chance, if we have a chance to sit down in the evening, we tend to watch documentaries together, historic ones. And as with books, I also haven't been reading that much, but I'm reading Murakami, some Murakami books that I've actually already read, short stories and so on. There's another squirrel out there. They're so cute. You know, we have these red squirrels here. In England, that we only have grey squirrels, or it's very rare that you see red squirrels. And I just love them, the way their little ears with the hair on them and so on. They just look kind of cheeky. And since we put this squirrel house in the garden, we've had a lot more as well. But yeah, it's just so nice to see all of this wildlife and nature and so on. So yes, I've been reading Murakami. Yeah, but I kind of feel I'd like to get into a good book again. So I don't know if anyone has any recommendations. I made that thread, but of course, you know, I haven't been so active. I haven't been using the computer very much. But if anyone has any more recommendations for books, that would be great. That I can get started on in the new year. So I guess I'm going to wish you a Merry Christmas. Because I don't think I'll be doing another one before Christmas. And I really I really hope that I feel inspired to do one in the new year, and that maybe it becomes more of a regular thing again. That's how I'm feeling at the moment. I really want that. But you just don't know how things will change. But I still enjoy having this. I don't want to let it go. And there will be different phases. There'll be times when I'm into it, and there'll be times, you know, and I think that's how my life is, and that's kind of normal for me, that I have just things change, and I think change, you know, just to embrace that and not to feel like I have to kind of do everything under pressure. I don't like to feel under pressure. I like to do things because I'm enjoying them, and that's to kind of close up with what I was talking about in the beginning, about truly being creative and aligning yourself with your truth. And I strongly feel that now, that there is kind of a truth to who each person is. And sometimes, or often, we try to be different to that, or that we've been taught, you know, you have to do things a certain way. And whenever you do that, you feel it's wrong. There's a kind of a tightness within you, and I try to, especially now, you know, that I've learnt this, really feel whether something's right, and if you're going to enjoy it, and then do it, you know. And I've enjoyed this today. I'm excited. I'm really excited to put this up. It's been such a long time. I'm looking forward to editing it and putting the music on and hearing the music again, and then going online and checking comments and stuff like that. So I hope that excitement stays, and that I talk to you again in the new year. But I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Goodbye.